discuss the problem of evil, which poses a very serious challenge towards the existence of a perfectly loving good God. So there are two types of evil in the world: agent-based evil, which is the evil that humans do to each other. For example, murder, right? And there is natural evil, which consists of hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, cancer, birth defects, genetic diseases, and so on. A crucial distinction between these two forms of evil, and this is very crucial, is that agent-based evil has a perpetrator, or one who acts through intent. In contrast, natural evil has only victims. So, one could argue that natural evil is worse than agent-based evil, in that it is a more gratuitous kind of evil. So the common objections that are raised toward the problem of evil go as the following. If God is all-powerful, all-loving, all-knowing, then why does he allow such monstrous evil and suffering to occur? If God loves us, he would surely not want us to suffer. If he is all-knowing, not only would it seem to be the case that he would know all of the horrible suffering in which we endure, but that he has always known that there would be evil and suffering, since he is omniscient. Moreover, if God is all-powerful, he can surely stop evil and suffering at any moment. Now, there are some arguments that attempt to refute the previous objections. For example, the Augustinian theodicy, which states God did create the perfect world, and God never created evil, but evil is rather just a perversion of goodness. So God did not create evil. Evil merely is the absence of goodness. So by the way, theodicy means vindication of God, which attempts to answer the question of why God permits evil, for those of you who don't know. So Augustine continues his theodicy by referring to the Bible, right? Specifically the notion of original sin. For example, God does love us, but the cause of evil is due to the fall of man. When Adam and Eve disobeyed God and were exiled from the Garden of Eden, according to Augustine, God gave us free will, and we can either accept God or reject God. So due to Adam and Eve's rejection, it has therefore separated us from God, and is the direct cause for the continuation of moral evil. So ultimately, this argument attempts to render God blameless for evil, and therefore he's not responsible. In contrast, of course, there are a lot of problems with Augustine's theodicy. So think of this one for a minute. If God created the perfect world, then how would it be possible for evil to exist? This seems like a major contradiction. How can a perfect world created by a perfect God be capable of containing any kind of evil? Either the world was never perfect to begin with, or it means that God purposefully created evil, since he is the engineer of all existence. Furthermore, I think we can also counter Augustine's argument pertaining to original sin, in that how are all human beings responsible for the sin of the first human beings? That seems kind of unfair or unjust. Also, if God is omniscient, he therefore would seem to have already known that Adam and Eve would sin in the Garden of Eden. So some other arguments for why God allows evil could be that we simply do not know God's reasons for allowing evil. For example, God could have kept us at an epistemic distance. So what that means is God could have kept us from knowing too much about him for, reasons we cannot know, or that he simply doesn't want us to know. It's possible. So the contemporary philosopher Alvin Plantinga believes that there is no logical contradiction between the existence of evil and a perfectly loving good God. Plantinga also posits the free will defense, in that God is omnipotent, but it does not mean that he can bring about any possible state of affairs. For example, Plantinga says, open quote, God cannot cause it that I give $100 to my church. He cannot cause me to do it freely. Because if he causes me to do it, I cannot do it freely. End quote. So, aside from these theodicies or arguments, both moral evil and natural evil still pose a major challenge to the existence of God and theists. So, most skeptics and atheists remain totally unconvinced and conclude that the problem of evil is proof that there is no God, at least not an all-powerful good God, maybe some sort of deistic God that doesn't intervene in the universe. So theists may have eliminated the logical issue that if there is evil, there is no God. But it can still be argued that they have not eliminated the problem probabilistically. In other words, one can still argue that there is probably no such God, even though we of course cannot exclude the possibility of God, logically speaking. So to conclude, I think the problem of evil has the most power in refuting God's existence, even though it does not follow that there is no such God. Remember, if evil exists, it does not therefore logically follow that there is no God. But, I do think, however, that theists must take the problem of evil more seriously. And I feel that most of them are completely detached from the enormous scope of this problem.